What is up, fight fans? This is DJC Combat, and in 10 days from now goes down the highly anticipated first pay-per-view of the year 2025, Makhachev versus Tsarukyan, UFC 311, which is a very, very stacked pay-per-view. We got the rematch, long-awaited rematch between Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan, and then we got another title fight, Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Two high-level title fights on this card, and then we got the return of the Money Man against Beneil Dariush, who hasn't fought in a while, and then an absolute banger, one of the most highly anticipated fights on this pay-per-view, Jiri Prochazka versus Jamahal Sweet Dreams Hill, one of the fights I am most looking forward to. And then we got Reiner versus Kevin Holland, very, very stacked card, and I'm going to start with Kevin Holland versus Reiner. So a lot of people in this fight are picking Kevin Holland, which I don't really understand why, because in the middleweight division, Kevin Holland is nowhere near as good as he is at welterweight, especially when it comes to dealing with the grapplers. His takedown defense at welterweight is better because he's fighting smaller guys. It makes it easier for him to defend takedowns, but at middleweight, we've seen him fold to the grappling pressure of guys like Derek Brunson and Marvin Vettori, who were able to take him down, dominate him on the ground, smother him, and win by decision. And even though Reiner doesn't have the highest takedown accuracy, I still think he can take Kevin Holland down. And if he's smart, he's not going to engage in a striking match with Kevin, because that's where Kevin's going to have the advantage. That's where he's the most dangerous. But I think Reiner is going to be able, I think he's going to be able to, but he's going to use his grappling in this fight and dominate Kevin Holland with it and potentially submit Kevin Holland. I just feel like Reiner is just the more logical pick. Also, former 2-Division 1 FC champion. I mean, how can you go against him? And he's got some good wins on his record as well. Like Ong La Nasang. That was a pretty good guy in 1FC who he beat twice. And he also just recently beat the GOAT GM3, so it's going to be hard to go against Reiner, so I got him winning this fight. And then also, moving up the card, Jamahal Sweet Dreams Hill versus Jiri Prochazka, the fight I'm most looking forward to seeing on January 18th on this pay-per-view. This is a matchup that is a long time coming. This is a matchup that I've been waiting for forever. This is a fight that should have happened when Jamahal Hill was champion, but Jiri was still recovering his shoulder, and then in that time when Jamahal was waiting for Jiri, he got his own injury to his Achilles tendon, and then Yuri's comeback fight for the vacant belt was Alex Pereira, where he ended up getting knocked out in the second round, and then Jamahal Hill, his comeback fight was Alex. He got smoked in the first round, so both guys are in the same boat. They're both coming off knockout losses to Alex Pereira. Both have a lot to lose going in this fight, but Jiri, I mean, with him, he might be worse off because he has 2 knockout losses to Alex. If he wins, he is unlikely to get the next title shot. And I feel like he got beat worse than Hill did in that last fight. And Hill has taken more time to recover than Jiri Prochazka. However, I've always said that Jiri Prochazka would have beaten Jamahal Hill. I've had debates with people about this fight. I've always been confident that Jiri would win this fight, but why I was so confident back then that Jiri would win is simply because at that time he had never lost in the UFC. He won 13 fights in a row, went undefeated for a whole decade. Jamahal lost more recently to Paul Craig, and I felt Jiri, with this style and the way he fights, could work on the style of Jamahal Hill. But now, seeing as, Jiri got chinned twice by Alex, second time more brutal than the first time, and in between those fights with Poatan, he had a very damaging fight with Rakic, even though he won. So he could come back in this fight against Jamahal very, very deteriorated. But this is a very interesting clash of styles and an interesting contrast of styles, because you got the wild, chaotic, unorthodox striking of Jiri Prochazka versus the very calm, composed, technical, methodical, patient kickboxing, boxing style of Jamahal Hill. Jamahal is slightly more technical, and he's very textbook, and just very simplistic. And sometimes basic is good, sometimes less is more. Sometimes Jiri does too much, where he kind of puts himself in danger in order to overwhelm his opponents. And a lot of the times it works. A lot of the times it is very, very effective. Jiri puts himself in danger, but he also puts his opponent in danger. Usually after a round, Jiri Prochazka is able to get in a striking rhythm, and once he gets going, once he gets his confidence going, once he gets your timing down, Jiri becomes very hard to stop, and he just snowballs and snowballs. He racks up momentum until he's able to overwhelm and finish you. And even in that second round in the first Pereira fight, where he did get finished, that was his best round. He fought way better in round 2 than he fought in the first round. But what really affected him against Poatan were those calf kicks. And those calf kicks of Pereira kind of mitigated the footwork of Jiri, which kind of made his pressure a lot less effective, because he became very sloppy with the way he was pressing forward, which made it a lot easier for him to time and a lot easier for Alex to catch him with a counter left hook. But Jamahal Hill has a very different style from Poatan. Even though Jamahal is effective with kicks, he has a very dangerous left kick. He can go to the body with the left kick. He can also go upstairs to the head. He's got a dangerous left high kick. He doesn't really prioritize calf kicks the way Alex Pereira does. And even if he does go to the legs with his kicks, they're not as effective, and Jamahal isn't as effective of a counter striker like Alex Pereira. Now, Jamahal does have a dangerous lead right hook. He could also switch stances and throw a left hook from the lead stance. And he's got a dangerous left cross, but his striking is not as precise as Alex Poatan Pereira. So without the calf kicks and without Jamahal's counters being as effective as Alex, it might make it a lot easier for Jamahal to or for Jiri to amp up that pressure. And it might be a lot less dangerous for Jiri to engage in the pocket than it would be against someone like Alex, because Jamahal, again, not as good of a counter puncher and not as powerful. However, what worries me about what worries me for Jiri Prochazka in this matchup is, again, he's taken a lot of damage throughout his career, especially in his last 3 fights. And the second fight against Poatan could have been a nail in the coffin. That could have been a career ender. And Jamahal Hill has taken less damage throughout his career. With the way he fights, he doesn't get hurt as much. He doesn't take as much damage. He's only been chinned once in his career. That was by Poatan, but before the Pereira fight, we've never seen Jamahal get rocked a bunch of times like we've seen Jiri get rocked a bunch of times. So I feel like this fight is all going to come down to Jiri Prochazka. There's a good chance that maybe he comes back with his confidence deteriorated, and maybe he doesn't fight as wild or as crazy as he's accustomed to. And if he fights a very slow-paced, patient, technical fight with Jamahal, Jamal's going to pick him apart and win by decision. But there's also a possibility that his chin might be deteriorated. And if that's the case, that amps up the chances of Jamahal Hill knocking him out as Jiri's, overcommitting. But similarities that both these guys have is they're both defensively irresponsible. I mean, Jamahal will pull on punches more. He's good at controlling range and slipping shots, but a lot of the times he'll drop his hands after throwing punches, and he'll overextend, which does leave him open to getting caught. That's why Alex landed that left hook, because when Jamahal threw that left cross, every time he throws that left cross, that left hook is open. He got clipped. Every time Jiri throws a punch, every time he throws a combination, his hands are to his waist. And that's what got him countered by Alex in both fights. The first fight, he was pressuring Pereira against the cage, dropped his hands, got cracked by a left hook. In the second fight, he threw a double jab, hands to his waist, got dropped brutally by a left hook. So both guys in this matchup are very capable of hurting each other and winning this fight via a knockout. However, I do feel like if Prochazka is able to come back like the Jiri of old, and if his confidence, if his durability isn't affected by those Alex Pereira fights, then ultimately I do think that Jiri Prochazka should win this fight. There is a reason why for years I favored Jiri to win this fight. So going into UFC 311, I'm less confident, but I'm still going to pick Jiri Prochazka just because Jamahal doesn't have the style to neutralize Jiri Prochazka's offense. The calf kicks won't be there. Jamahal Hill's right hook won't be as effective as Alex Pereira's left hook. Now, of course, Jamahal can fight from either stance, but he's most effective in southpaw. But again, his striking, defense, and offense is not as good as Alex, so there's less danger there. And there's going to be more room for Jiri Prochazka to kind of do his thing, to work his game. So I think round one's going to start. I think Jamahal Hill might outpoint him like Rakic was doing early. He might tag Jiri Prochazka, land some good kicks, land that left straight cross. But then going into round two, with Jiri still having his legs under him, I think he's going to be able to get in a striking flow. His confidence is going to go up. And he's going to start amping up the pressure. He's going to start snowballing Jamahal Hill, which I think is going to lead to a finish for Jiri Prochazka. There's going to be a lot more openings to catch Jamahal than there was against Alex. He'll be able to land that powerful right hand, that left hand, the inside elbows he's able to land on his opponents. He couldn't land them on Alex. I think he can land them on Jamahal and do a lot of damage. He can knock out Jamahal with his hands, his elbows, but either way, I think Jiri is going to be able to drown Jamahal Hill in round two and get a TKO win. Second round, the usual round two Jiri Prochazka finish. I understand Jamahal Hill did better against Teixeira than Jiri did, but again, that all came down to the way both these guys fight. Jiri is more wild and chaotic. He takes more risks, which created more openings for Glover to have success. Whereas because Jamahal, he fought such a perfect fight against Glover, it allowed him to sort of shut down Glover's game, put himself in way less danger. But Jiri's striking obviously is much better than Glover's, and Jamahal's striking is not as dangerous as Alex. So I got Jiri Prochazka winning this fight, but I will not be shocked if Jamahal Hill is able to catch Jiri in a wild exchange and chin him. But yeah, I'm going with Jiri to win, but it's a very, very 50-50 fight. Either man could win this. And then Renato Moicano versus Beneil Dariush. Renato Moicano is on an absolute roll right now. 6-fight win streak in the lightweight division. I know technically he's on a 4-fight win streak overall, but his last loss to RDA short notice, and it was a catch weight bout. But since then, 4 wins in a row, and I mean, he's looked so good lately, whereas Beneil, 2-fight knockout L streak. He hasn't fought in a while. Renato has been more active. However, this is an interesting clash of styles, seeing as whereas Renato is a very high level grappler, so is Beneil. Beneil has great takedown defense, great scrambling ability, so that kind of begs the question, will Renato be able to do to Beneil what he does so effectively to everyone else? Usually Renato has fought strikers where he has a significant advantage on the ground, like when he fought Benoit Saint-Denis, Jalen Turner, and other guys like what's that guy? That guy got knocked out by Ilia Topuria, Jai Herbert. And then who else did this guy fight? Brad Riddell, and then Drew Dober. All the guys he fought recently were strikers who were afraid of his ground game, and he had a significant grappling advantage over, and he was able to take them down, use his smothering top control, use his ground and pound to set up submissions, or get ground and pound finishes, or hurt his opponents and then finish them on the ground. But against Beneil, what he does to everyone else, he might not be able to do to Beneil Dariush, because Beneil can grapple, because he can scramble. So ultimately, this fight may come down to the striking, and Renato Moicano, he's not really a ferocious knockout artist like an Oliveira or like a Arman Tsarukyan. So will Renato be able to chin Beneil Dariush? That is like, I don't know. We're just gonna have to find out when the fight happens. I was gonna say maybe that's up to be desired. I don't know if I'm using that term correctly. But again, Beneil has taken a lot of damage. He's been chinned twice, inactivity, and Renato does have pop to his punches. So it is possible that Renato Moicano could chin Beneil Dariush. But then even without Renato's power, I mean, both guys are good on the feet, but Renato is very good on the feet. He's got good boxing, good kicks, good Muay Thai, good knees, good leg kicks. He was able to outstrike the boxer in Calvin Kattar, dismantle him with leg kicks. I think he hurt Brad Riddell with a flying knee. He dropped Cub Swanson and Alex Hernandez before being able to find subs. But I don't know if he subs Beneil, but he could hurt him. But you know what? I'm just going to go with Renato Moicano just because he's fought more recently. He's been improving in his fights, whereas Beneil, he's kind of on the decline. He's kind of on his way out. Now, obviously, Beneil Dariush could prove me wrong. Beneil Dariush has a chance to pull the upset here, but it's hard to not pick Renato in this fight. So I'm going to go with him to win. And then the co-main event, Umar Nurmagomedov versus Merab Dvalishvili. I've been saying for months that I do think Umar Nurmagomedov would beat Merab. I've actually been saying this for like a whole year. I've always thought Umar was a bad matchup for Merab. And the reason why I think so is because even though Merab Dvalishvili weaponizes pace and cardio very well, he's not really exceptional anywhere the fight goes. I mean, he is a very good wrestler, but a lot of the times his wrestling isn't based upon completing takedowns successfully and controlling you on the ground. Apart from his last fight against O'Malley, he will usually just spam takedowns even if they don't hit. Even if he doesn't get you down, he'll just spam takedowns until you fade. He's not really that good on the feet. I mean, he'll frantically, bounce around on the feet, but that doesn't really make him a good striker. And I think Umar Nurmagomedov is better than him on a technical level in the striking. I think his kicks are better. He's very good at throwing kicks from range. He's got very good distance management, good distance striking, but also very good inside fighting, very effective boxing, but also good counter wrestling. Stemming from that Dagestani Sambo wrestling background, it's going to make it very hard for Merab to be able to impose his wrestling game on Umar Nurmagomedov. And a lot of the times, Merab's style is so effective because he's fighting strikers who are afraid of getting taken down by him and can't keep up with his pace. That affected the way O'Malley was able to use his striking. That affected Peter Yan and how he was able to use his striking. That affected Jose Aldo and how he was able to strike. But against someone like Umar, the takedown threat might not be that big of a factor, and it might allow Umar's striking to shine. And Merab will wrestle a lot against the cage, but Umar Nurmagomedov against the cage could be very effective. I think, for one, he could escape the fence, but even if he doesn't, he could get a lot of inside sweeps from the clinch to get Merab down as Merab is trying to work a takedown against the cage. But then even out in the open, Umar could take him down. I think ultimately this fight is going to come down to cardio and how well Umar's cardio holds up. Merab could overwhelm him with his pace and his pressure. I do think the longer this fight goes, Umar will slow down, but I don't think he'll slow down soon enough. And I don't think he'll slow down that badly to the point where he's not able to be effective. So I got Umar winning this fight. I think he'll outpoint Merab with the striking, the fend takedowns, but there are openings for a finish in this fight. Umar could land a left hook. Merab is very susceptible to that left hook. We saw Marlon Moraes crack him with that hook, almost finish him. Henry, who's not even a striker, who's a wrestler, landed that left hook. But there's also openings for that high kick for Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar Nurmagomedov has a very dangerous roundhouse head kick from the orthodox stance, but he also has good question mark high kicks, which they could land on Merab Dvalishvili, which could lead to a finish. But ultimately, I think Umar, bad matchup. He's got the perfect style to beat Merab. I also think Umar is in Merab's head too. Merab is very emotional going in this fight. He didn't want to take this fight with Umar Nurmagomedov, so I don't like that for Merab going into this fight. And also, Umar's got Khabib as a coach and Belal Muhammad. He's got both those guys on his team, so it's going to be hard to bet against the undefeated Dagestani, and I think we're going to get a brand new Dagestan champion to start the year 2025. And then the main event, Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan 2. These two fought 6 years ago. The last time they fought, it was on short notice. Both guys were very young and green in their careers, but even back then, it was such a high-level competitive fight. Arman Tsarukyan challenged Islam in ways where back then Islam wasn't used to. He was the first man to be able to defend a lot of Islam takedowns, threaten takedowns on Islam, and I think he's the first and only man to take down Islam Makhachev. And if anyone in this division can beat Makhachev, it is Arman Tsarukyan. Because Arman Tsarukyan, he's one of the only guys at lightweight who can keep up with Islam everywhere the fight goes. He can match Islam in physical strength, but also with his wrestling background, it will make him very difficult to take down. Arman Tsarukyan is also extremely flexible, which should help with takedown defense, but both men have massively improved from that first fight. I think both guys are going to be more ready for each other than they were back then. Back then, Islam knew nothing about Arman. Arman didn't know much about Islam either. But now both guys have experience fighting each other. They both know what to expect from one another. However, I do feel like everywhere Arman Tsarukyan is good, I think Islam Makhachev is slightly better. I think Islam Makhachev is a better striker than Arman Tsarukyan. Even with Arman being able to defend takedowns, I think Islam can take him in the stand-up. I think Islam has more of a finishing ability. He's got a power advantage on the feet, and on the ground, he's a better finisher. He's got better submission ability. And I do think offensively, his grappling and wrestling is better. And in their first fight, even though Arman Tsarukyan took him down, he took him down once. Islam took him down 4 times. And not too long ago, Arman got taken down 6 times by Mateusz Gamrot. So if one of them is going to get taken down more than the other in this fight, I do think it's going to be Arman Tsarukyan. So even though Arman Tsarukyan is very good, and I do think this is going to be a tough fight for Islam Makhachev, it's hard not to go with Islam Makhachev in this fight. I feel like he's more battle-tested than Arman Tsarukyan. He's been in more wars. He's got more 5-round experience. And the last time Arman Tsarukyan went 5 rounds, it was against Gamrot. And what costed him in that fight was his gas tank. He slowed down as the fight went on, which ultimately got him to lose the fight. Now, I'm sure since then he's worked a lot on his cardio. He's worked a lot on prioritizing his pacing. But in that last fight against Charles Oliveira, the longer the fight went, the more the fight started to get away from him, even though he won the 3rd round against Charles. Charles Oliveira had more success in round 3 than he did in round 2, and of course round 1 outside the near submission attempt. He started landing more clean strikes, and he almost subbed Arman towards the end. And if that fight were 5 rounds, Oliveira's odds of winning that fight would have increased by a lot more. And I think with this being a 5-rounder, I think Islam has a huge advantage. I could see Arman Tsarukyan having a lot of success early and really testing Islam in the early rounds. But then as the fight goes on, I think Islam is going to be able to show his championship medal, his championship experience. And I think if anyone gets tired first, it's going to be Arman. And I think Islam can still get multiple takedowns in this fight, even though it is proven his takedowns are defendable. Volkanovski was able to defend a lot of takedowns. So was Dustin. I still think Islam will be able to get takedowns to score points. And even if he's not able to get enough takedowns or enough control, it doesn't matter. I think he can beat Arman on the feet. I do predict this fight will be a war in the stand-up, but I do think Islam is going to do more damage with his hands. And I think Islam also has better striking defense. He's very good at rolling with punches, seeing punches coming, and he's very effective at countering off the back foot. So Arman Tsarukyan would have to be very careful how he engages Islam when he pressures him. Because we've seen Volkanovski, when Volkanovski had success early in the first round and even stunned Makhachev, when he got too confident, Islam was able to tag him coming in, stagger him. When Oliveira got too wild and chaotic on the feet, Islam was able to counter and hurt him. So I do think he can hurt Arman on the feet more than Arman can hurt him. And then also, that left high kick is a weapon of Islam that Arman will have to look out for. Islam did come close twice to landing that kick, that head kick on Arman in their first fight. But now, years later, with both men improving in their striking, I think Islam, if he goes for that kick again, it's going to have a lot more precision and higher odds of landing clean, which could lead to him finishing Arman Tsarukyan. But I am going to pick Islam by decision, a competitive decision, because Arman Tsarukyan is very tough. He's hard to finish, whether it be a KO or a submission. I think it's going to be a competitive 5-round war, but I think Islam is just going to slightly edge him everywhere the fight goes and just do better in an all-around 5-rounder in terms of being better in the late rounds. But I could see Arman winning. Arman Tsarukyan does have a good chance, but I feel like their fights with Charles Oliveira kind of tells me who is the better fighter. Islam Makhachev completely shut down Oliveira and finished him. Arman Tsarukyan struggled with Oliveira, took him to a split decision, and almost got finished. So I gotta go with Makhachev to win this fight. But I will not be surprised if Arman wins. He has a good chance, but Islam is my pick. I got the Dagestanis winning their title fights. However, I do have a feeling that it's going to be one or the other. Either it's going to be Arman and Umar, or it's going to be Arman and Merab who win, or it's going to be Islam and Umar. There's no in between. But with that being said, let me know your predictions in the comment section down below. Who do you got winning in these two title fights? And still or and new? Will one champ win and the other lose? And what are your predictions for the rest of this card? Like and subscribe, and peace out.